Hi, my name is Travis Lindsay. I am here for the Center for Entrepreneurship at Cal State Fullerton, and I'm here to talk today with Ryan Foland from UCI. Ryan, can you please introduce yourself?
Ahoy. Yes, it's good to be here. And if you were trying to find out about me, I'd say the top three things to know is that I'm a speaker, I'm a sailor, and I'm a proud ginger. And by ginger, I mean the red hair, the freckles, the pale skin, the stuff that I was plagued as a kid with being made fun of. And I've reclaimed that and turned that into my superpower. And I work also as the director at the UCI ANTrepreneur Center, where we turn anteaters into entrepreneurs, or as we like to be cheeky, entrepreneurs.
Yes, as a fellow ginger myself, I appreciate you taking a stand for all of us horribly maligned gingers. I mean,
Yes,
it's
we,
really
we
tough
do
growing
have
up.
souls. We do have souls. I can verify.
Well, I'm not sure about me, but it's good to learn that you do have a soul. So speaking of soul, I work, for Cal State Fullerton, UCI, and we're partnering together with an event coming up. Let me see, it's March 9th, 2024. SoCal celebrates entrepreneurship. It's something that we've been doing for a number of years now, and UCI is joining us for the one coming up. Can you tell us a little bit why you're joining us and what you hope to achieve through this partnership?
Well, I think when you get people together, magic happens. And when you get students to get off campus and meet other students, other entrepreneurs, other investors, you get them outside their comfort zone, I think that that's where a lot of that magic can occur. So I'm a big fan of bringing people together. And funny enough, when I saw this program first, it was in your digital version during COVID. And I was so fascinated with all the interviews and thought it would be so great to expose our students to it. I actually went through and created images for thumbnails for all the speakers, went through all the YouTube videos and found the start points, and then over a period of time, dripped out the actual video interview content to our students. So before even being involved officially, I was just getting involved to share the insights. And I think when I say magic, I really can boil that down to helping people accelerate their experience. And the thing with experience is that you don't get it until after you need it. Yet an event like this brings in so many people with such a vast and diverse aspects of experience, it accelerates students' learning at the end of the day. If you meet somebody who's been there, done that, or they're on a panel or they're talking about something went wrong and how they overcame it, I think it's truly a way for students to gain the experience that they don't know they need, they didn't know that they need to have, and I think an event like this is a great way to bring everybody together.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think it was General Mattis who was saying that, hey, you're going to encounter situations that you've never encountered personally before, and so the only way you're going to get that experience is if like you read books about how others did it beforehand. And I 100% in the same camp, and it's great to hear that you went through and you pulled out thumbnails for all the different interviews that we did and linked those to your students. That is awesome. One of the things that I noticed looking through your CV is that you're an instructor both at Cal State Fullerton and also at UCI. Uh, can you talk a little bit about that? How has that informed how you're leading the Entrepreneur Center over at UCI?
Sure. So at Cal State Fullerton, I've been there for a number of years. I can't even count now, probably more than five. And initially, they asked me to come and teach a series of classes in a leadership certification program for public agencies. And I found that fascinating because I really come from a world of both public and private experience. I'm an entrepreneur. I started a Christmas light company in sixth grade, and it took care of me making money all the way through college. I just look at business as an enterprising way. I still am a professional speaker outside of UCI. I've got a patent. I've got programs. I've got all kinds of stuff. And I think that what is interesting in this series of classes is helping people in the public environment. So firefighters and policemen and people who work at the forest agency and the water agencies, helping them understand leadership inside a public agency. And I really draw from the private industry to help show the differences and pull best practices from both. UCI, we are one of, if not depending on the time of year, the largest employer in Orange County, or number two. And there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of bureaucratic things. There's a lot of elements that you have to navigate as a leader in a public environment that's different in a private environment. And so the classes I teach there is one on political acumen, one on strategic decision making, and then one on strategic influence. And so I think that how I take what I'm teaching there and focus on the skills that we're teaching students at the Entrepreneur Center is really leadership. I wrote 5 books over the last 3 years that I'll be slowly dripping out into the world under a series I call Getting Your Ship Together. And I really look at things as a series of ships. You've got leadership, you've got partnership, entrepreneurship. Everything I see is like, I don't know, it's my sailor in me comes back to that. But leadership is really something that is a team effort, right? If you look at working in teams, whether it's students working in teams or employees in the police department, if everyone is responsible, no one is responsible. And so I'm a big fan of looking at leadership in a way of who's doing what, defining how we can get through the system, and at the end of the day, helping to influence. So we help students to influence others, to change the way they think about things, and to give them an opportunity to take action. And in private business, we are trying to influence others, to change the way people think and to get them to take action. And in the public agencies, you're trying to change the way people think and get them to take action. So whether it's a class at Cal State Fullerton or a class at UCI or a workshop at the center, I'm a big fan of authentic influence. And that ties into leadership, ties into how you present, showmanship. It ties into relationships and building friendships and partnerships. It's just a lot of ships to get together.
Those are a lot of ships. And yeah, I think, tying that together with something that you said earlier about experience, a lot of people, their conception of leadership is more like Alexander the Great, taking the sword and cutting the Gordian knot. And that's just how you do it, right? And everything's going to flow from there. And there's this one big leader that, decides everything. That's not the case. I mean, even in the smallest of startups, you have to manage those relationships, and you're building up the values that the company is going to actually follow, and and it extends out from there. It influences who you hire, how you grow the business, to really everything that the business does. And something that you were saying that about like distributed leadership, right? I mean, if you set the tone the right way from the get-go, it really does trickle down to everybody else, and they'll make decisions that are more in line with what you want to accomplish for the business or the organization or whatever the case may be. So it's absolutely critical. And did you say that you've written 5 books over the last 3 years?
Yes, 5 books over the last 3 years. I was going to launch them as NFTs, and I was set up for that, and then that crypto winter set in, and so I sort of put the pause on that. But yeah, it's a series of books, 10,000 words or less, all illustrated with my stick figures, and they're all ships. So the first one that comes out is going to be on showmanship. I'm very passionate about how people present their ideas. I think you can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't articulate it in a compelling, concise way, it's just no longer the best idea. And so if you're an engineer or a scientist and you've got these great ideas, I'm passionate about giving those tools to help communicate. And I think a lot of that has to do with showmanship.
Yeah, 100%. So part of my background is as a co-founder of an investment fund. And sometimes when the founder is more or almost completely on the technical side, they get lost in that minutiae, right? I mean, it's just all the little details, and they miss the big picture. And so, for somebody like myself, background in business and finance and, that sort of stuff, it doesn't really resonate with me. So that is great. Looking through some of the stuff that you have on your CV on LinkedIn, one of the things that stood out to me was what you wrote about use your failure, mistakes, and vulnerabilities to fund success. is that something that you live by on a day-to-day basis? Is this something that you're teaching all of your students, everybody that you work with? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes to all of the above. I have my book that's published right now through McGraw-Hill Business is called Ditch the Act. And it really is a look at how transparency, real-time transparency, being authentic and sharing more than just the good, it's actually the best thing you can do to accelerate your relationship, your business, really your life. And it's an experience that I went through where I had a lot of, let's call them bad mentors, feeding me the advice to fake it until you make it, to buy the Rimini Red Range Rover with 22-inch Rimini Red rims to create the persona, even though I couldn't afford it, to wear the suits and put on the act as though I had the success when I really didn't in order to chase after it. And I really kept stumbling, kept falling, kept just not getting to where I want. And there was a total inflection point, an inciting incident where a funny side story about a pimple on a big stage. And I, for once, kind of like became vulnerable and shared what was really stressing me out. And it was a catalyst for me to recognize that what is stressing me out and what is going wrong is actually how we relate to people. And in essence, I think we're really taught to believe that people care about our stories of success. And the challenge with that is that we don't all have a whole bunch of success stories, especially as we're coming up in the world. And so we feel like we can't share unless it's really good, or we have a tendency to sort of share, even if it's not exactly true, like the extreme of what we think people might want. But I've found, and I teach and I do share, that people are not as interested in your story of success, but they're more interested in how they see themselves in your story. And I don't know about you, but I have not won the lotto yet. But I've played a bunch and I've lost. And so I can relate to people on losing the lotto more than I can on winning the lotto. And it shows up in everyday life where people will ask you, so how are you doing today? And most often people go, oh, I'm fine. I'm great. I'm good. I'm great. When really, like, they're either tired or they're grumpy or something's going wrong in their life. And they just sort of skip over that. And there's a loss of connection. There's a loss of relatability. And so I think ditching the act is something I practice every day, where somebody will ask me how I'm doing, and I'll try to give a pretty honest answer, whether I'm tired, whether I'm exhausted, whether I'm overwhelmed, whether I'm feeling good. And you'd be surprised that if you're sharing something that's not great, somebody else might share that feeling or be like, oh my gosh, I'm tired too. And then now all of a sudden you're connected on a certain level that's authentic. So as you might know, in, say, a meeting where you're meeting with a startup and you're like, tell me how things are going. And they're like, oh, it's great. And this is happening here and here. And all this stuff is amazing. You're like, I don't know if I believe you. But if they're actually a bit more honest, saying, here's where the struggles are, this is what I'm having troubles with, they come across as more coachable. They come across as more relatable. And you might have 20 minutes in a 30-minute conversation about something having nothing to do with their business, but getting to know them. And I think that the trick of sharing your failures helps people get to know you. And if they get to know you, it's up to them whether they like you or not. And not everybody has to like you. But if they do truly get to know you for who you are, your quirks and all, and if they like you, it sets the foundation for trust. And on the back of the book, it literally says, being human is the only way to get ahead in business. And we all are really good at failing.
Well, I think that the people who are working on AI might quibble with the being human part, but that still is yet to be seen. Yeah, the authenticity. I mean, what you were talking about. I mean, that really struck a chord with me, especially on the startup side and the investing side. Pretty much the main story I always hear is, oh, everything's going great. I mean, look at this graph. I mean, everything's going up through the roof. I mean, it's just it's steeper than Mount Everest or K2. And that's not reality. It's not authentic. So
would you rather have somebody say, look, the graph goes up and to the right because I know that's my projection, but I know that it's wrong. Here's where we're really at. Here's what we're really struggling with. Here's what we're really needing help with. Like, does that come across, even if it sounds like they're not doing as well? Don't they come across as more investable?
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, like, okay, so we invest in really early stage companies, right? And so these are the companies that, I mean, they don't really have any history to speak of for the most part. They might have a product, they might have some customers, and that's more and more, what we're seeing. But I mean, it's still mostly a blank slate. So we're looking at the team. How do they work together? What's their story? How is this all going to work out? What's their plan for the future, and do they have the right pieces in place to to get to that next stage where they raise an additional fund or an additional round, excuse me, so that they can add on more people to the team and really grow. So yeah, I mean, the more authentic they can be, the more open they could be, the better it's going to be for everybody. I mean, we know that in order to be an investable company, you have to reach a certain level of size. And so if you're not telling that story, then I mean it's kind of a deal stopper to begin with. But really, to get to that next level, you have to show that you can be coachable, that we can talk with you, and maybe help you get to that next level, and you're going to actually listen to some of the advice that we have to say, or some of the other people that we know who have been there and done that. Bringing it back to what you were talking about earlier, who have that experience, and that you will listen to them, and you're not going to make that same mistake that's going to cost you millions of dollars and crush your business.
Yeah, and to your point about early stage startups, I mean, I work on campus with undergraduates who are very early stage, and off campus I work with professionals and executives deep into their career. And going even threading back to this experience, there's so much power in the story of how you got to where you are. And sometimes it's not like the best story, because there's all kinds of bricks that you get hit in the face with, and walls that you hit, and then traps that you fall into, and mistakes that you make. But when people, startups, entrepreneurs can actually own that and share it, what they're really doing is sharing their experience. And I think typically people have this hesitancy to share what goes wrong because they're afraid it's going to make them look bad or look naive. But the trick to sharing is, this is what went wrong. Here's why I'm telling you this. And this is how I've changed as a person. And so for people who don't have a lot of experience or don't have a lot of expertise, the best thing they can do is document their story or market themselves to help people get to know them before people even meet them. And the reality is that people are Googling you. And if you have zero content to share with them, then there's 0 points of connection or relatability. And so I'm just a big believer that entrepreneurs should always be building their own personal brand and not hiding behind their company, because the company is going to change. The company is going to, change. And I feel like putting yourself in front of your company is an insurance policy, because your company might change, but you will always remain. And so I think opportunity is there for those that want to put themselves as that human in the business and document that story to share.
Right. And so how much of the issue do you think is attributable to like the advent of social media over the last decade? So I taught at Cal State Fullerton for a couple of years right at the beginning of COVID. And I know that you've taught there, and you're teaching at UCI, you're teaching at both right now. I mean, pretty much all the students, they're on social media, and they're basically doing the exact opposite of what you've been talking about, telling that authentic story. They're, showing themselves on these awesome trips, or, that they're lifting weights, or that they're, having this perfect life. They're living their best life. It's kind of the opposite of what you're saying. So how much of an issue do you see that as being?
Those same people that are sharing the slices of life where things are great, grand, or living their best life, they have plenty of things to share of when things went wrong. It's about having them understand how to share them in a way that shows a part of that life. And I mean, your classic working out sort of thing, your classic before and after, right? I think metaphorically, people are afraid to show the before, and everybody's just showing all of the after. And in order to actually have people get to know you, knowing you during those low times or knowing the struggles that you've gone through is a piece of accelerating that relationship. Now, you can overshare, you can totally mess it up and sort of emotionally vomit on people, you can push people away. So there is an art to doing it. But the reality is that if everything you share is like glitz and glam, you actually like can push people away because they don't necessarily see themselves in your story. They might be like jealous, or they might like have this disconnect. And so I think that people who are social media natives, and it's part of their sort of DNA, I think they default to just sharing the good. And I call that the high like reel, where they're just going for likes. And I encourage people to understand what it means to create a highlight reel, REAL. And it's documenting parts of the story that help people see the experience that you're getting. And so I think that I think there's a balance. And in my book, I talk about different levels of exposure. And we have these big moments like where, I filed for bankruptcy and got it returned to me because I was 32 cents short on postage. Like, that's a very dramatic story of my life, but out of context, it might not make sense, but it's part of my story. And so it's implanted into different parts. So there's an art to being relatable, and that is to be authentic and transparent. And I think it also, for early stage entrepreneurs, it gives people a chance and a reason to help you out. So for those that are posting on social and everything's like, glitz and glam, best life, I challenge you to put a post out there where maybe you're sharing something that you're challenged with, and ask people for your advice. Like, if I'm super stressed or overwhelmed, sometimes I'll tweet or X or whatever, and I'll say like, God, today was super stressful. I can't seem to kick it. And then that people who are my followers and friends will be like, they'll be there to support me, or they'll be giving some DMs about how a certain tea helps them out. And so if you do share a post that is like leaving yourself open for getting some help or advice, people actually then can help you out, as opposed to like, oh, you're living your best life. What am I supposed to do with that? There's no way I can help you out. And the analogy to investors, you ask for money, you typically get advice. You ask for advice and you could get some money. So I think that there's a lot of parallel in how to successfully raise money and how to successfully tell a story to make yourself be more fundable.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think a big part of what you're talking about is that it engenders trust, right? So if you're open about, the ups and the downs, especially, let's just say you're a company that has already been invested in, and you tell your investors, hey, we lost, this key employee. Can you help us out? You're more likely to get help that way because
versus not telling them and scrambling for 6 months and not having that position and being able to explain it later. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It just helps build that trust. And, in business, trust is everything. I mean, it's not everything, but I mean, it's basically everything.
People want to do business with those who they know, like, and trust. And if you think of the people that you really know, you've known when they've had like a really rough day. You've known when they've lost somebody close to them. You've known when they've been like broke. These things, and you still love them. It's like you know them for all those colors. And so if you really want to create that bond or that connection with people, there's a way where social media can be a tool to help sort of bring people in and have it be attraction, and them seeing themselves in your story and resonating with that.
Yeah. And for anybody watching this, I mean, just think back to any of like the movies or the books that you've read that really made a huge impact. Chances are there's a huge delta between like the bottom that the main character had and what they were able to achieve. I mean, so, a couple examples pop to my mind, like Logan or any of the like Christian Bale, Nolan Batman movies. I mean, they get knocked down relentlessly throughout the movie, and finally at the very end they are able to prevail. That's a more compelling story than Superman just coming in and solving everything in 4 minutes, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't be much of a movie. If there's no conflict, there's no drama. Like, and drama is not a bad thing. It actually gives people a chance to support you or to connect or to discuss or talk about it. And these are the ways that you gain experience, and you don't gain experience until after you need it. And so sharing what went wrong and focusing on the learning lessons that you have shows that you're growing, that you're, as a person, you're professionally becoming somebody who's more trustable.
Right. And bringing this back around to SoCal Celebrates Entrepreneurship. So that's, again, coming up early next year, March of next year, I believe March 9th of next year. Are there some, topics that you would, that you're hoping are, that get added into that event?
I mean, being on the planning committee, I see, and I love all the tracks. So I think that, the general topics are good. What I would encourage for people who are attending is to do a little bit of research beforehand so that you can have a better idea and actually connect with the people involved ahead of time on LinkedIn. Let them know that you're interested in connecting with them. There's so much networking that happens before, during, and then also after. And there are, going back to just so many cool people that are going to be in one area to meet. So find the people that might be great for your network, and find the people that have had experience in the verticals that you're trying to build and grow in. I'm really excited about the fast pitch competition. I'm excited to MC it and, get everybody pumped up and put the pressure on and turn the lights on their face and see what they do in the big lights and the big pressure moment. Again, it's a chance for everyone else to get to know who you are. So if you are a startup, definitely get in the ring to get up on the quick pitch stage. And remember, you don't have to share everything. All you're trying to do is give them enough information to want more. Just because you have a 2 or 3 minute pitch doesn't mean you have to speak really fast and try to fit it all in. No, just give them an idea that they want to talk with you afterwards. That would be my pitch advice.
Yeah, and we'll have links to all that stuff, including some information on how to, put together a good pitch. Not necessarily a winning one, hey, maybe this could be one of those stories that you use to relate to people. Or maybe it will be a success story. Who knows? Wrapping this up, what advice would you give to your young self? If you could, start over, you're just graduating from high school. What advice would you give to yourself? Because a lot of the people that are going to be coming to the SoCal Celebrates Entrepreneurship, they're students, and maybe they don't know what the right path forward is. So maybe your advice to your young self could help.
Yeah, I think people are smart. There's more resources than ever. And in the context of sort of building your professional reputation, building your founder story, and building what I call your personal brand, I think that what I would have done earlier is launch my own personal website. And I really think that people are smart and they do the right things, but they do the right things in the wrong order. And I'm guilty of this. I got really excited about being a speaker. I wrote like 50 blogs one summer. I was all gung-ho about it, got no traction. Nobody read them, nobody shared them, nothing happened. And part of it, I realized, it's like they had no place to go. They were just blogs. There was no centralized point for me. And I really challenge everyone to not look at the social media platforms as your property, because they're not your property. You're just a pawn in an advertising scheme to get people to buy and click and scroll. And so people just think, oh, I own my Twitter or my X account, or like, this is my Instagram. It's not yours. You don't own that property. And so if I could have gone back, I wish I would have started my actual personal website as soon as the internet came out. You can find information about me on my website that I have control over. I've got 4 TEDx talks that you can find in that one spot. I've got 3 podcasts that you can go to that one place and get. If you want to learn about me, there's like that one spot. And so I have so many people that are like, oh, I want to build my brand. I'm like, okay, do you have a personal website yet? No. Or they're an entrepreneur and they're like, I want to build my brand, become more of an influential figure. I'm like, do you have your own personal website? No, we have a business website. No. Do you have a personal website? So my website, for example, is ryan.online. Like, get a domain with your name in it. And that is what I would tell my younger self. I would have a lot more embedded SEO and legacy links. But the best time to start a website was 25 years ago. And the second best time to start is today. Same thing with a plant.
100%. So don't be a brick in somebody else's wall, build up your own wall.
Yeah, get your own foundation. And your website is the only place you own online. And it's the one place you have full control over. I mean, literally, your platform could be purchased, sold. I mean, look at Twitter. Like, example, if that was your place and your home base, it's now changed and you can't do anything about it. So own your own real estate online.
100%. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. I'm looking forward to continue working with you on SoCal Celebrates Entrepreneurship and hopefully some other stuff.
Yeah. And I think my final words here is what's so cool about this event is it brings together so many educational institutions, so many community organizations. And I've heard people talk about how, you know, the ecosystem in Orange County is broken or there's no ecosystem. BS. There is an ecosystem. It's just about people acknowledging and connecting those dots. And this event brings this existing ecosystem together into one roof under one day. And I think it's a great example of how the ecosystem exists. We don't need to build it. We just need to better connect it. And so I see this as a really great connection tool.
100%. Well, thank you again, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
For sure.